It was a hot morning in Washington, May 2025. The air in the Oval Office felt heavy, not from the weather, but from the storm building inside. Donald Trump was pacing the room, red-faced, clenching his fists, slamming papers on the desk. "That African kid thinks he can ignore America?" he snapped. His anger wasn't just about one man. It was about what that man represented, a shift in power, one that Trump didn't see coming and didn't know how to stop. That man was Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso. Young, calm, and unexpectedly popular, Ibrahim had become a voice for Africa, a voice Trump didn't like. Across from him sat Steve Bannon, recently brought back as an advisor. "Mr. President," Bannon said carefully, "why not put him on the spot? Call him out, a live interview. Show the world he's not ready for the big stage." Trump stopped pacing. "A debate?" he asked. Bannon nodded. "On Fox News. Let the world see who's really in charge." Trump smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "Brilliant. I'll humiliate him. Make it clear that America calls the shots." The call was made the same day. Trump, his voice smooth and fake, dialed the number himself. "Ibrahim, my friend," he said. "How about a chat on live TV? Clear up all this tension. Let the people hear it straight from us." Thousands of miles away in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim listened calmly. He paused, just long enough to let the trap settle. Then he replied, "Of course, Mr. President. That would be very interesting." He hung up and turned to his intelligence chief. A small smile appeared on his face. Trump just walked right into it. For months, Ibrahim's team had been collecting recordings, documents, and witness reports. Every insult, every plan, every quiet move Trump had made against African nations, they had it all. And now, finally, they had a way to show it to the world. "Get everything ready," Ibrahim said quietly. "The world will finally see who he really is." In Washington, Trump was already planning his attack. He saw this debate as a victory lap, a chance to crush a young African leader on live television. But Ibrahim wasn't coming to talk. He was coming to expose. Both leaders began preparing, one full of ego, the other full of quiet confidence. And as the date of the broadcast drew closer, neither side realized just how much the world was about to change. In a quiet, heavily guarded room deep inside the West Wing, Donald Trump sat at the head of a long table surrounded by a handful of close advisors. Steve Bannon was leaning over a stack of papers, while Stephen Miller scribbled notes on a yellow pad. The atmosphere was thick with pride and confidence. This wasn't just a meeting. It felt like war planning. They weren't preparing to defend ideas. They were preparing to crush a man. "We hit him where it hurts," Miller said, pointing at a document. "Talk about terrorism, poverty, military coups. Paint his country as a mess. Paint him as a child in charge of a broken toy." Trump leaned back, nodding slowly. "I'll show the world Africa still needs a master," he said without blinking. The others didn't flinch. That line would probably make the cut. Thousands of miles away, inside a quiet office in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré sat in front of a digital display showing dozens of redacted transcripts. His intelligence chief stood beside him. They had spent months building this library of evidence. 47 recordings, all verified. Some were phone calls, some were internal memos. All had one thing in common: Trump's voice, full of contempt for African leaders. Ibrahim scrolled through a few of the files. One featured Trump laughing with an ally about making Africa beg again. Another had him approving funds to quietly remove certain presidents who refused to work with American interests. "He doesn't see us as equals," Ibrahim said, his eyes locked on the screen. "He sees us as something to control, like a colony he lost." He leaned back, hands clasped. "He wants to recolonize Africa. Let's expose him." Back in Washington, some senior officials were growing nervous. The Secretary of Defense had heard about the planned live debate and didn't like it. He walked into a late-night strategy meeting and stood across from Trump. "Mr. President, with respect, this could be risky. Live debates are unpredictable. What if something gets out of hand?" Trump didn't even look up. "It won't. He's a nobody from a country that depends on us. I've handled bigger threats." His ego was the wall no advice could pass through. The warning was brushed aside like an annoying fly. Meanwhile, in the Fox News studio, Sean Hannity was buzzing with excitement. He saw this as a perfect stage for Trump to shine. He met with his producers and asked for a list of soft entry questions. Nothing too heavy at the start, just enough to warm things up before the fireworks. "This is going to be gold," Hannity said. "Trump crushing a foreign dictator live on air. Who doesn't want to watch that?" What he didn't know was that across the ocean, Ibrahim had already shared digital folders with multiple news agencies and international observers. Each folder included legal documentation, verified audio files, and official reports. Everything was backed up 3 times, ready to go public the moment the debate began. As the date drew closer, the difference between the two leaders became more obvious. Trump grew louder, more impatient, snapping at aides, demanding better insults, sharper comebacks. "I want to make him look like a joke," he said one morning. "I want him to regret ever stepping onto the world stage." In contrast, Ibrahim was quiet and focused. He practiced his answers, not to defend himself, but to direct the world's attention to the truth. "He thinks I came to debate," Ibrahim said to his aide. "I came to dismantle him." His team worked silently in the background, checking connections, encrypting files, lining up everything for the big moment. As the final hours approached, news channels around the world began showing teaser footage. One side of the screen showed Trump adjusting his tie, surrounded by lights and TV makeup artists. The other showed Ibrahim in a modest but proud-looking room, wearing a simple suit, a laptop in front of him. The contrast was hard to ignore. One man was preparing for a show. The other was preparing for something much bigger. Social media lit up with questions. Why is this debate happening? What's going to be said? People in Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas all waited. Nobody knew exactly what was coming, but there was a strange feeling in the air, like everyone knew something important was about to happen. The stage was set. The world was watching. And only one of the 2 men truly knew what was about to unfold. The cameras rolled. A split screen showed Donald Trump in a polished Fox News studio in New York, sitting upright, eyes cold and sharp. On the other half of the screen, Ibrahim Traoré sat quietly in a clean, modest office in Ouagadougou. He wore no makeup, no show, just purpose. Sean Hannity's voice came in, slightly shaky with excitement. "Tonight," he said, "we bring you a historic discussion between President Donald Trump and President Ibrahim Traoré. A direct talk about the future of U.S.-Africa relations." Trump leaned forward almost instantly, not waiting for a proper start. "Let's be clear," he said, eyes locked on the camera. "Africa needs discipline. We provide the aid, we make the rules, and we're not going to keep helping people who spit in our face." Hannity nodded awkwardly. Ibrahim didn't blink. His face stayed calm, almost unreadable. Then came the shift. Quiet, cold, and clear. Ibrahim looked straight at the camera and spoke gently. "Mr. President," he said, "perhaps we should let the viewers hear your own words. From your December phone call with the President of France." Trump paused. His face twitched, just for a second. "I have no idea what you're talking about," he said, his voice a little higher now. "Fake news, probably. You people love editing things." Ibrahim pulled out a small device and placed it next to his mic. He hit play. The studio filled with a familiar voice, Trump's voice, from a secret call. "Emmanuel, these African presidents, monkeys in suits. They don't understand power. They need to be reminded who runs the world." For a moment, there was silence. Total silence. Trump blinked, then raised his hands. "This is a fake. It's AI, deep fake. They can make anyone say anything now." But his voice cracked. Sweat began to form on his upper lip. His eyes darted between the screen and Hannity. Hannity looked stunned. Ibrahim didn't stop. He spoke again, calmly. "And now, Mr. President, shall we hear your conversation with President Putin from January 4th? Before Trump could speak, another recording played. Trump again. "We need to keep these Africans in their place. Maybe some coordinated operations. Make it look like unrest, like they're unstable on their own." Trump slammed the table in front of him. "This is out of context. It's edited. This is all garbage." Hannity, clearly panicking now, whispered something to his producer. His eyes begged for a commercial break. But Ibrahim cut in. "Don't worry, Sean. There's more. Let's not go to a break yet." And then came the final strike. "This is a document signed by you, Mr. President," Ibrahim said, holding up a file. "Part of a secret plan your team called Operation African Cleansing. It includes $500 million in funding, and it names 47 African leaders marked for removal. Assassination." He paused. "Including me." Hannity froze. Trump's face turned red, then pale. His mouth opened, but no words came. Ibrahim pressed play on a third recording. Trump's voice again. "I want Ibrahim Traoré gone. Make it look like an accident. Plane failure. Maybe a security lapse. Just clean." Trump was now visibly shaking. That's not what I meant," he stammered. "This is a plot. This is a trap. It's fake." But he wasn't shouting anymore. He was unraveling. Then it happened. Live, on air. Trump put both hands on the table, leaned forward, and began talking. Fast, angry, scared. "You don't get it. They're taking our markets. They're working with China, with Russia. We're losing control. I had to protect America. We had to do something." "Are you saying you approve these plans?" Ibrahim asked. Trump didn't answer directly. He just kept going. "These people are not like us. They don't respect order. They don't care about the rules. If we didn't act, we'd lose. The whole continent." Ibrahim stayed silent, letting the moment hang. Hannity looked like he'd seen a ghost. Trump kept rambling. "We were going to guide things, put in friendly governments, ones that listen. I didn't want war, I just wanted control. That's what America needs, control." At that point, producers whispered urgently in Hannity's ear. He tried to interrupt. "We might need to pause for..." But it was too late. The world had heard everything. 200 million people were watching across networks and platforms. Phones lit up, social media exploded. Within seconds, hashtags like "Dear Trump Confesses," "Dear African Cleansing," and "Live War Crimes" were trending worldwide. People were translating the confession into multiple languages in real time. In the studio, Hannity turned off his mic and whispered, "We just aired a war crimes confession." Trump was still breathing heavily, sweating, face pale. Ibrahim sat quietly, looking straight at the screen. He had said very little, but everything had already been said. The truth was now public, and nothing could undo it. The hours after the broadcast were filled with panic at the White House. Phones rang non-stop. Staff rushed in and out of meeting rooms, their faces pale, their voices sharp. No one could believe what had just happened. Cabinet members began stepping down, one after the other. No explanations, no press conferences, just quiet resignations, one after another. Vice President J.D. Vance called for an emergency meeting and brought up the 25th Amendment. The president confessed to organizing political killings, he said. He's not fit to lead. This isn't about politics anymore. It's about the safety of the world. Outside the building, reporters shouted questions through fences. Most networks were already calling it America's darkest confession. On live television, the international response came fast and loud. The United Nations held an emergency session just 18 hours after the debate. Several ambassadors walked in holding printed transcripts of the broadcast. The International Criminal Court announced a formal investigation before the day ended. Protesters filled the streets in cities across the U.S., Washington, New York, Atlanta, Chicago. They marched with signs that read, "No genocide in our name," and "Remove him now." Even Trump's usual supporters on cable news were quiet, unsure how to spin what the world had already heard. Outside embassies in Africa and Europe, people held vigils for the names mentioned in Trump's hit list. For many, this was no longer just about politics. It was about justice. Inside the Oval Office, Trump sat alone, the TV on mute. The lights were dim. He hadn't shaved. He hadn't eaten. He kept mumbling to himself the same line again and again. How did this African boy beat me? His aides stopped coming in. His lawyers were quitting. Even his closest allies were distancing themselves. His name was everywhere, but for all the wrong reasons. And he couldn't control it anymore. The power he once used to crush enemies, silence journalists, and shape global politics was gone. And he knew it. Meanwhile, in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré was being celebrated around the world. He received a personal call from the Pope, thanking him for standing up against evil. Universities began offering him honorary degrees. Nobel committees released a statement saying his actions had prevented a historic crime. In Paris, Berlin, and Nairobi, people held signs that read, "Thank you, Ibrahim." He was invited to speak at a special session of the United Nations. Standing before the global body, he spoke plainly. 2 years ago, we caught the whispers of a plan. We didn't ignore them. We documented. We waited. We acted. Eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. Every seat in the room stood for a full minute of applause. Justice arrived in handcuffs. Federal agents walked into the White House days later with an arrest warrant signed by international authorities. Trump was taken without a word. No cameras were allowed inside. He was flown to The Hague under heavy security. His trial at the International Criminal Court lasted weeks. Ibrahim took the stand and calmly presented the evidence: phone calls, signed documents, secret orders, and wire transfers. Intelligence officers, former military advisors, and whistleblowers confirmed every detail. The courtroom was silent. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on all counts, life in prison. The shock of Trump's fall echoed for months. But something unexpected began to grow. Across Africa, countries started working more closely together. Shared reforms, fair trade, and common education policies started taking shape. The continent's GDP began rising. Foreign investment came in not as charity, but as partnership. Ibrahim Traoré was elected president of the African Union. In his first address, he said, "Trump underestimated us. He thought Africa would stay quiet forever. But he gave us something we didn't have before, unity. And we're never letting it go." The world had watched a man fall, but it also watched a continent rise.